Hey, Mitch, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Hi, everyone.
How are you doing?
I am doing good. It's a new year, a lot of opportunities. I'm hoping that it's better than 2020 and excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, so excited. I am actually currently wearing yoga pants. So I'm dressed for the occasion today. And I'm wearing a shirt that says, may the funding be with you, and a little button that says I'm an investor, because you and I met via editing your pitch deck. So I just feel like I dressed for you today for the interview.
I appreciate the love and support.
Well, Mitch, I want to start off before we get into your company, and we have so many awesome things to talk about. And you and I we're on the same energy wavelength. We're already 15 minutes into our scheduled interview because we just can't stop talking. Let's start with your background though. So where are you from? Where did you grow up? What did you study? Did you have a career before you started OYA? Like, how did you end up here?
Yeah, so I'm a second year MBA student at the UCLA Anderson School of Management. And I actually joined Anderson after really falling in love with sportswear. I had done a previous clothing line where I dressed men and women, but I quickly realized I didn't know anything about running a business, much less fashion. And so I applied to business school and I got a full ride to come here and build this business. So this past year, and this is my second year, has been really a big journey of growth. And I'm just super excited about those opportunities.
So are you
Before,
using your MBA as like a accelerator?
yes.
That's amazing. I love that. I've heard of there's at least one other founder I know of that he came up with an idea, went to MBA school because he knew that they would have to work on projects. And he was like, I just thought I'd always bring up my idea. We'd always just work on my project. And for 2 years, like he had all these MBAs working on his company. He graduated and then, wow, I love it. I love it. I love it. Hustle, girl. Hustle. All
Yeah.
right. So you're
I
in school.
Yeah, I just think as like a woman founder, especially a woman of color, I don't necessarily come from a place where there's a lot of support, you
Yeah.
know? And so I think UCLA Anderson was a really great school for me because they were one of the uh, first schools where I felt like had a concrete program around how to help you build a business. And so that's why I'm here. Um, Before Anderson and UCLA, I was a consultant at Deloitte for 4 years. Before that, I did Teach for America in Detroit, where I built a NASA endorsed robotics team. So, like, I've always been super hands on oriented, and I really always love projects and like building businesses and things like that. And then, previous to that, I graduated from the University of Chicago with a bachelor's in public policy. So always thinking about how do things help people? How do we help people live better and like healthier lives, more fulfilling lives? And I grew up in Philadelphia, home of cheesesteaks and hoagies.
Yes. Oh man, a good Philly cheesesteak. I'm from Jersey. There ain't nothing like it. Nothing like that. Yeah. Well, what is OYA?
So OYA Femtech Apparel is our first stab at creating the world's first femtech legging. So we're again born out of UCLA and born in a fashion lab, and we engineer for women's health, style, functionality, and comfort. So we make leggings. And when you think about our leggings, I want you to think breathable, leak absorbent, and curve shaping, because we're as a company really obsessed about helping women get through their day comfortably. And we're trying to build a community around this idea of how do you support feminine health with functional apparel.
Mhm. Now, the paradigm is that yoga pants are the most comfortable, the most casual piece of clothing you could ever wear, right? So, why are you arguing that yoga pants are not comfortable or not healthy for women?
In theory, they are comfortable, and
Yeah.
we all know that. However,
Uh,
there's a lot of women excluded from being able to embrace that comfort. And even if it's like basic things, think about the fact that most leggings are made out of spandex blends, right? And so they trap moisture, and which leads to bacterial growth. And most women, especially if they have curvy thighs, are just like, say less. They completely understand, which makes them hyper exposed to issues like bacterial vaginosis or yeast infections or things like that. And so, an example of this is when we first started the company, I was actually at the OBGYN's office because I used to get yeast infections because I was a collegiate athlete essentially. And I had played with Olympians. And so I'm always training, like doing pull-ups and, well, when the gyms were open, doing pull-ups and these things.
Mhm.
And at business school, I was at the OBGYN and she was like, man, you know who could really benefit is these D1 women athletes. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, they're always here because they're always having issues like yeast infections and BV. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, no one talks about it. But she's like, I tell them it's because they're always in these leggings. And
Yeah.
so we did a lot of research and we found that the average legging makes women 2 times more likely to contract vaginal health issues, especially if you're in leggings all the time. And also, if you have chronic illnesses, so for example, it's difficult for you to like move your legs, or you have a lot of sweat in those areas, or if you're a recent mom and you're suffering from issues like stress incontinence, where there's a lot of moisture just going down there already. So there was no real product to address all of these things in a comfortable way. And so we really, I think the best way to describe it is the average legging is made out of 4 to 5 panels. And panels are things like where a seam is essentially. I don't know if you can see on my t-shirt. Our legging has 16 panels. 16. So
Wow.
that's literally 4 times the average competitor, all with the idea in mind around how do you create breathability and how do you absorb all this moisture so that way your vagina can stay dry.
Yeah.
So,
I love that explanation. And I think that most of our listeners, are women that probably were like, oh, I know secretly why yoga pants aren't good, because it gets hot and sweaty and it just traps it all up in there, but we don't talk about it. And for any of our men listeners, you've probably never even heard about this. You probably were like, wait, I thought women loved yoga pants. They love wearing them. But actually, like, it's very high risk. It's 2x the high risk, right? You're just saying. So I know for myself, when I played sports in high school, that was like the time I had the most yeast infections in my life, because I would, change into my like running shorts or whatever, yoga pant style. And after school, what's that? 2:30, 3 o'clock, practice for 3.5 hours, and then take the bus home for 30 minutes, be hungry. So I'd eat dinner, and then I was in sweaty yoga pants that had trapped all my sweat, and it resulted in not feeling good about myself. And I was just like, what the hell's wrong with like me? Like all the other skinny girls, they wear yoga pants all the time, and it's like, no, they probably were struggling too, but
yeah, and it's embarrassing and frustrating, but I think that part of this is because the industry term for sportswear is like shrink it and pink it, right? So it's like our leggings are a derivative of men's athletic wear, and they just shrink it pink. And then if you're thinking about Lululemon coming out with the first yoga fabric in like the 80s, early 90s, like much hasn't changed since then. And so you I don't want to blame the patriarchy, but vaginal health, if I really genuinely believe if everyone supported vaginal health and people were just kinder to the vaginas around us, the world would be a better place. I just really
that's my mission. That's my mission. I'm just like, give the vulva more respect. Like everyone will work out. Everyone will feel better. So we're talking about this correlation between yoga pants, the material, holding moisture, being very tight and constricting, leading to vaginal health problems. Can you tell me some of the statistics around? So you said yeast infection, you said BV. What does BV stand for?
So BV is bacterial vaginosis. And so that essentially means that you have an overgrowth of bacteria in your vagina. And it's not, your vagina has good bacteria and bad bacteria. So BV is saying you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria. And that bacteria is actually thriving in an environment where there's less oxygen. So realistically, your vagina should be very ventilated. That's why OBGYNs are always saying, wear cotton because it's moisture absorbent and it's very ventilated. And when there's air, good bacteria is thriving. But when there's a lack of air, suddenly you have this bad bacteria that's like thriving off of the lack of air. And so it kills all the good bacteria.
Yeah. Well, I have a question. I'm a woman who my inner thighs touch. I've never been a woman who like you could see through my thighs. Okay. I don't have the window. Is there any statistics or anything? This is a personal question. Is there for myself? Is there any statistics that like that affects the ventilation? Like if you are a woman who's a little heavier set, like you're blocking airflow?
No, there hasn't been. I haven't seen, and trust me, I probably would be the person that knows because I've spent like literally a year like investigating these statistics, but I have not seen any statistics particularly about thigh gaps. But what I have found is that women who are heavier overall tend to have more issues because they have more moisture being trapped. So I'm assuming that just like deductive reasoning, that if you have thigh gaps and right there, that means that there's probably more sweat pooling in that area than women who have thigh gaps. And so that might lead to, when there's sweat, that's when things are being trapped, and that leads to an overgrowth of bacteria.
It sounds like you need an intern who studies thigh gaps. I can see a thesis being written up about thigh gaps right now.
Well, some of the other interesting statistics, I think, like BV, which I was just talking about, like a third of women at all time have that. So like literally right now, a third of women have BV. And sometimes people aren't necessarily aware that they have BV, or like women are just like, oh, it's kind of like a cold, if that makes sense. Or like you're like vaginal imbalance is off. But like if a third of women at all point, if a third of men always had an issue with their penis, then that would be a public health like issue. And I'm not even making up statistics. This is from the CDC. Wow. And then like 75% of women are going to get like BV or yeast infections. Those are the most common issues like throughout their lifetime. And it's just like, why does no one talk about this? Or recent moms go all the way up to 40% of recent moms, depending upon the study, suffer from stress incontinence after they have a baby, anywhere up to 5 years after giving birth. So there are women who literally can't pee correctly, or they're just peeing when they sneeze for up to 5 years. Those are crazy statistics.
That is crazy. And I wonder what the psychology is behind why are we not talking about it? Because I feel like there's this societal pressure that vaginas and vulvas need to be clean. They need to smell good. They need to have no discharge. Unless you're squirting, then that's acceptable. What the bucket,
depending upon your makeup,
Yeah. And so I know, I feel like there's also this struggle to get men to go down on women. And so if we also complain about what actually happens down there, maybe men will be less inclined. I don't know. I just feel like there's so many layers of women trying to show the world oh, no, my vagina's clean. Please, please love it. Be kind to it. I will shave it. I'll clean it. Do all these things to it. There's all of these hygienic things vaginal steaming that you don't need to have in your life. Obviously, you're anti-vaginal steaming. You're the steam's the issue.
No, I think steam's good though, because it someone says it helps clean it. I think it's just more so when you sit in that moisture,
and you have yoga pants on. That's right.
The bacteria. But if you're into vaginal steaming, I support you. Just take a shower afterwards and pat.
That's right. Don't put your yoga pants on right after and then not shower. That's the issue, right? Yeah. Right. Well, something else I wanted to talk about was diversity in yoga pants. So you and we had a call a few weeks ago. I was mentoring you, coaching you on your pitch deck. We were going through slide by slide. We were looking at your competitor slide. And I said, let's look up some of these competitors. What about this one? What about that one? We went to some of their websites. And I'm obviously you were there. You remember this. I'm telling the story for our listeners. So we go to a few of these websites of different yoga pants competitors, and all of their websites contained these pictures of very fit women. They were white women. They were in just a sports bra and the yoga pants. They were drinking this super expensive little latte, smoothie thing. They were laughing. They had long, luxurious white girl hair, and the yoga pants were $200. And I was like, what is oh my gosh, like this is a very specific type of person they're all targeting. And then we went to Mitch's website, and you have women of every color, of all shapes, doing all different types of things. And I just felt like, oh, like this is for like the everyday woman. So can we talk about diversity in the yoga pants industry?
Yeah, or even diversity of women in fashion overall, right? Like very difficult. And part of this is because of these things called SKUs. So when you design a garment, it typically like you're fitting it on one particular body type. So you can have a garment that's made to look best on one particular like size and potentially height. And if you want to start getting away from that, so a lot of companies, what they typically do is design for women who are shaped like rectangles. So if you think about models, they're tall and they're shaped like a rectangle.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone else is supposed to conform with that because that's the only body type that they really designed for. So when you start bringing in diversity of different sizes, of different shapes, of different heights, that means that you suddenly need to start accommodating different SKUs. So like, for example, if you have a woman who's shorter, then you need a petite line. And so that's a whole nother SKU count in terms of inventory than the woman who's a rectangle, who's an average height. Or if you have a woman who is, what is this, an hourglass, that means you need a different fit because you have to accommodate her butt because she's not a rectangle. So like, otherwise the leggings would pinch in on her hips and things. And so that's a whole nother new line. And so a lot of these companies, to save money, typically design for the same woman. And then because those are the only options really available on the market, everyone else is expected to conform to that. Mm-hmm. So as a startup, we're super like anti that. That's really just not even like our vibe, because like that's the whole reason that we're in the game, right? Because it's like we embrace diversity. We want it to be amazing. And so being in business school has been a fantastic experience because they work really hard. I mean, granted, there could be more women. There could be more women of color. I'm not saying that the business environment is perfect, but I will say that UCLA Anderson does try to get a lot of different ethnicities and people represented here. And so we've done a lot with diversity of different body types, and we've played with it. Our legging is even best shaped. It's called the Shape Fit right now. It's best designed for women with triangle shapes and women with like hourglasses, because those aren't really leggings that you find on the market. Everything else is really designed for a rectangle. With that, it's also like, as a startup, you have limited resources, right? Yeah. So it's not necessarily like you can come out with every single SKU count to accommodate every different body size. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we currently are still like playing with, because we just recently did a photo shoot with about like 6 or 7, 8 women who are very diverse. We had like a boxer, we had a latte blonde girl with long hair.
Listen, the latte girls, they need vaginal health too. So
exactly. She was, we had shorter women, we had them all. And, our legging looked different in all of these different women, but like they were just also happy to be there. And we had photos of them. And that was actually our highest performing photo on our Instagram. And people we didn't even know were reaching out to us trying to like buy the product. And they were just so excited to see that message of inclusion, because I think a lot of millennials and Gen Zers are about that message. I just think that is something that OYA really wants to grow into. Like, as we evolve and we get more inventory, we really want to intentionally create garments that accommodate different sizes, because it's not just about showing them in the picture, it's actually designing for that woman in mind, so you can create a product that makes her look good and emphasizes her assets.
Well, something that my marketing director, Allie, is predicting for 2021, that the trend will be for marketing is more authenticity. 2020 showed us that polished is privileged, because when we first went into lockdown and all the rich and famous started going in an Instagram live being like, we're in this together, people were like, shut up. You like have millions in savings. You're in your mansion, like, shut up. And I feel like we really swung into this, like, hey, here's my real life. Look what it looks like,
Yeah, and it's interesting because so we're in LA, right? So like, we're kind of like the Hollywood Central. So yesterday we were shooting a commercial, and right after shooting the commercial, we then jumped into shooting a TikTok, right? Uh-huh. And videographer is like, well, what do you need with this? Because he has like this whole camera set up. And I'm like, Brian, this is TikTok. I don't need like Hollywood level production. And to him, it's like this completely like, he's like, I don't understand you kids. Like everything else was about a story and having a whole production and things. And
Now
like,
it's just about a little dance.
yes. And I think, there's room for both in that sense. Like, I think user generated content that's not necessarily high, like well produced or anything like that, that resonates with people. Like people just seeing real women walk around in leggings and things like that and squat, that really resonates. On the same note, we are raising money, and we are sitting in front of these investors that may be a little bit more old school and maybe used to looking at certain sorts of things. And so it's like you need that aspirational content that's like a fully like produced commercial. But then at the same time, you also need that user generated content, which is like how you're identifying and connecting with millennials and potential Gen Zers.
Sounds like you're playing the game, which is always my advice. Hey, listen, if you need the money, this is how you're going to have to tell your story, get the money, and then do whatever the hell you want, but like, you got to play the game, you got to hustle it. But I do want to ask you though about, we are seeing, femtech as this new industry, which is crazy. It shouldn't be new, but it is. Shouldn't be new, but it is. We have about maybe 6 actual femtech funds in the world. Again, insane. But you straddle this like consumer product goods, fashion, but also health, right? Because if you were only focused on clothing and profit margins, maybe vaginal health material and wouldn't be necessarily the priority, but in the health industry it would. But if you're in health, you're not necessarily thinking about cloth. So like, how are you working with that?
That is a really great question. And it also kind of sits in the intersection of tech, right? Like not traditional tech, because it's like not like software or anything like that, but it is femtech. Like you are thinking about like how like 16 panels, that's engineering, right? Like you need to re-engineer how a legging works. And it's interesting speaking to some of these investors who have a very particular like way of looking at tech or a very particular way of looking at health, because suddenly I can't tell you how many investors who I've met with who are men who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But then they come back and they're like, my daughter really liked this presentation, or, oh, my wife was potentially having some of these issues. And I think beyond the distinctions between tech, healthcare, and CPGs, I think it's almost like a question of like, what diversity of women sit in these rooms? Because we've noticed that like when we explain ourselves, it's typically women that advocate on our behalf. So in one competition, like Milken, in which we raised like 20K, we weren't like the other 2 judges were men, the moderator was a man, and then one of the judges was a woman. We didn't necessarily rank top of mind in the men's mind, right? But later on, we learned that woman went to bat for us, right? She was like, this could be like Spanx. She's like, these are issues that I see that I face, women that I've known have faced, and things like that. And I think part of what you see in this investor world is that there are not a lot of women involved. There's not necessarily a lot of women of color, and they're not necessarily in the position where they can push the industry in a way that's more inclusive of women. And that's to your point of like, fintech is new. No, it's not. It really shouldn't be new. But who oversees healthcare overall? And so when we're thinking about investors that we're potentially interested in talking to, we're really interested in women like Serena. Like, Serena, you probably had a yeast infection.
Serena.
Yeah. But like just women who are out there, who are doing it, trying to live comfortable lives, who are recent moms, who've like seen these things, because it's almost like, do I necessarily want to put all my energy into changing the mind of an old dude who has no idea what I'm talking about, who like isn't even necessarily that interested?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I know. And it just is such a pain in the butt, because like most of the men are the ones with the money, right? And so there's like this, like, you know what, I'm not even going to bother trying to educate y'all. I'm just going to get money from women. But there is actually less than 1% of women in the United States that are accredited investors have ever invested in a startup. And so it's like all of a sudden you limit yourself. And so then you have to go back on the pedestal. I just did a 2020 review, Femtech review, and I actually made a plea that it should not be on the founders to educate investors. It should be the Femtech organizations. So like, that's what I'm really working on, creating Femtech angels so we can educate. So when you come to pitch, you say, vaginal health's important, and here's how we're addressing it. And no one in the room needs convincing. They all say, yep, Brittany convinced us, right?
No, and I think that that's super important, is having those platforms. And I almost think of it, not to take a parallel, but like, I would be sad if I didn't bring this up, but like race in America right now, right? And it's like, think about 2020 and the riots, and riots is a strong word, protests. I would say protest, but other people have different definitions. I think, at that time, many people were asking me about like my role as like an entrepreneur and like as a Black woman and like leading a team, because I do lead a team. I have men of many different races. I have white men, I have like an Indian man, like, so, but it's hard to, when you put the burden on education of the people who are necessarily not, who don't necessarily have the power, you're shifting that mindset, because then it's like the person with the power is not doing any work, right? They're not thinking about how they're part of the problem. They're not thinking, they're like, they need to be convinced. And so I think allyship and creating those platforms are things where it's like you're able to give people opportunities who are creating solutions to problems that many people solve. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, so their homework, investors' homework for learning about the femtech industry could be like listening to this podcast, right? And so it's like, I'm putting in the effort to interview you, but their effort of learning is like listening to this every day. We got like almost 100 episodes. There's plenty of hours for them to listen to.
Yeah. And I, when I think about great allyship, like Megan Rapinoe, I'm a fan, like genuinely just like a fan, but like, she just like puts herself out there, and she's always thinking about like trying to like educate herself. And like, when I think about 2020, like 2021, that's where I want to see us go. Like, can we all like just take more steps to like educate ourselves and to grow and to think about like, how do we create a better America where we all thrive? And that includes vaginas. Like, how do we create a better America where vaginas thrive?
Yes. Oh my God. That's like my prayer. Every morning I wake up and I hit my knees and I say, please God, help all the vaginas.
Help them grow,
Help the vaginas. They need our help. So let me talk to you about, we've been talking about yoga pants. And I mean, I didn't really think about like, when I think about what still needs innovating in femtech, yoga pants actually never came to mind until I got introduced to you. And then I was like, oh, of course, obviously they need to breathe, and, totally an issue. What are other potential clothing that women wear that, could be causing us issues that we don't normally think about? We've just accepted it,
Well, I think bras, like over 80% of women wear the wrong bra size, but that tends to be more of have a health reaction the larger your boobs are. And that's particularly because of a SKU count issue, right? Again, like designing clothes to fit women of different body types. You also get a lot of feedback about underwear. OBGYNs always like advise women to wear cotton underwear because it's breathable and absorbs moisture. And OYA leggings have a removable pad, and that's what's actually absorbing the moisture. It's cotton, to try and keep women safe. So things like polyester underwear and things like that are more likely to trap moisture. But I would even shift this conversation to be less like what clothes are causing women like necessarily like physical health, as mostly more to think about it in terms of like mental health. I think women get a lot of pressure to look a certain way and to act a certain way. And as you see these celebrities getting so many cosmetic surgeries, or you seeing clothing like advertised to make you look a certain way and like suck this in and things like that. I think what OYA stands for is really this idea of creating functional clothing that helps women move about their day comfortably, and thinking about that as like a perspective. Like when you think about your clothes, how does it functionally help you? And I think that the industry is not necessarily there. So many things are like, ooh, does this woman look sexy, or like da 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 da. Like I think when women are comfortable and healthy, that they're probably more powerful than necessarily just being sexy. And so like I think put pockets on things,
Oh
like
my God, more pockets, please.
yes. And so I think that would be something that I'd be curious to see where the apparel industry goes, and not to put so much pressure on women to conform and look a certain way.
Absolutely. I love this. You really sparked something in my mind, because 2020, we've mostly spent it at home in sports bras. I've talked to a lot of women who are like, I've given up bras for like 4 months now. I don't know if I'm putting anything on next year, heels. I haven't worn heels in months, and I used to live in those. Right. And so I wonder, like, when the world opens back up, what about women's fashion is going to change? Because women are like, listen, heels really hurt my ankles, or I remember I had a friend whose mom like had to have these surgeries on her feet because she wore heels for decades, and she had all these like bone issues in her feet, so heels. I'm even thinking about thongs, like that. Should it, like, is that healthy? Is that why do we have wedgies? Like, I'm trying to think about, like, why do we have this? And a majority of my underwear admittedly are thongs. And I think to myself, like, would I like another, like, why do I wear them? Like,
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, I think, so there's a saying that a famous designer once said, and it's like, women design clothes for women to wear and like do things, and men design clothes for women to like look at, so for women to be pretty, right? And so if you're thinking about like the evolution of a lot of fashion for women, like this idea of like runway catwalks and things like that, which were really invented by a lot of men designers, it was like designed for women to like look pretty. Or Victoria's Secret, another thing owned by men, and like I feel like they were some of the biggest advocates of the thong, like in the catwalks and everything.
the
And so
underwire. Who the hell wants to wear wire on your body like
it
that?
makes you look more pretty, which is how men design things, and men have a very big hold in the fashion industry. Like part of why leggings have not really been designed in such a way to make women healthy is that there's a dearth, or like a lack of women designers, right? And so you would think that in women's clothing there'd be more women who'd be like pushing to like get the industry in like a more comfortable place, but often it's not. Even Steve Madden making these heels for women, they're typically men, and that's part of the problem.
Yes. Wow. So interesting. I'm a scientist. So fashion has never been my forte. It's not something in front of mind, but like time and time again, we're seeing, women-centered design needs a priority. And I think about that a lot of times in terms of medical devices. I just spoke to a founder the other day who's innovating a medical device to help with C-sections, to help open the woman's, essentially her core to get the baby out. And I said, what med devices are they using right now? He said, oh, they just take like a bunch of different like abdominal med devices, and they use those, but there is no med device made for C-sections, even though millions of women have it every year. And so when I think of women-centered design, I think of that, but women-centered design is also yoga pants, right? It's like, hey, vaginas are not like the top of your thighs. They have different needs, right? And the material that cover them should accommodate that, right? Accordingly.
Yeah, girl, you preaching to a choir. I know C-section things, but like I don't have a baby myself, but the longer I get into the the legging game, and I talk to these recent moms, I'm just like, and then I think there's also layers of like a socioeconomic that status at play here, right? Like who gets the best healthcare, who gets the best legging. And so something like what we really tried to do was try to make our leggings affordable. And so $85, $89 is like, that's a high price point for a lot of women. But like when we first designed our leggings, they were $150. And we were like, this is a very, are we saying only a certain demographic of women get to have healthy vaginas? And so we worked really hard to try and bring that price point down. And I just, there's just, yes, I agree with you. Women-centered design is important. And I think it's also important that that be affordable, you know, for lots of women.
It's not a luxury to have things that are made for you, right?
Except right now, especially in regards to health, it is.
It is. I'm saying that's my manifestation for the future. What are some of your future goals for OYA?
Yeah, I'm really excited to release different leggings. So eventually like a pre-legging. So that way, you know, back to this like diversity piece, like shorter women feel more comfortable in those sorts of styles. And like we've gotten a lot of questions about that. So once we get inventory up, that's something we want to expand into. Also, this idea of like building a community. I frequently get pushed where people are like, do you really want to say the word vagina? That's like too like hardcore. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from. But at the same time, no, you know, like this is no, like I really want people to understand vagina is not a bad word. And so how do you create this community where people embrace them, you know? And something else that I'd be really excited about is our new is our next fit. So right now, Shape Fit, our leggings again are designed for triangles and hourglasses, but we want to come out with a slim fit line, and that's more so for like rectangles and potentially circles. And so that way, again, we're bringing in that diversity.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And yeah, make vagina mainstream, right? I love that because you never I was thinking about the other day, like, you know how kids are just hooligans out there, they're always drawing penises. First of all, they're always circumcised, which I think tells you about like it's mostly Americans drawing them for some reason. Like I've never seen a doodle of an uncircumcised penis, but also like I never see doodles of vulvas around, you know, or a clitoris, like mostly because people don't know what it looks like. Also, like let's just go out and like tag everything with like vaginas, like let's draw vulvas all over the place. I'm down. Whoever wants to, we'll wear masks and stand 6 feet apart. Let's go like chalk up streets of major cities with pictures of vulvas. That's an idea just came up with, for real. I might tell Sue Warren we want to do that. But the other thing is I found a company was called Clit Health. And it was recommended to me by a boomer, a woman, older woman who was like, oh, do you know this company? The name is kind of, you know, just, oh, it's called Clit Health. Oh, and I was like, oh, well, what does Clit Health do? She goes, sexual education. And I wanted to be like, sounds like the clitoris is like probably a pretty important part of their sex ed platform. Like,
yeah,
Clit Health sounds like an appropriate name for it.
Yeah, I read somewhere, and you can tell me this is probably more up your wheelhouse than mine, but like a third of women have never had an orgasm.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
No, I know. I know. I know. I know. It's like if a third of men had never ejaculated, we would be in World War V by now. Like
because they are ejaculating and we're still almost pushing towards a World War III at different points. So like,
yep.
That just makes me so sad.
I want everyone to have breathable pants and underwear, and I want them all to be orgasming as often as they want to with no shame. That's what I want.
I'm telling you, if more women orgasm, the world would be a better place.
I wonder if there's a correlation with like, I wonder if there was actually less orgasms decades ago, and actually we are increasing. Maybe it was like 50% versus 33%. And I wonder if there's a correlation in like femtech and like orgasming for women. That's an interesting project. Another intern, the correlation between orgasms and women-centered design.
Yeah, and I also like I want to give a shout out for the men who like are out here, you know, like trying to help, like who are feminists, and I can speak for my team. Like I have 4 men on my team who are like, you know, like an Indian guy, like he didn't really necessarily say the word vagina before he joined our company, but like now he's here, and like, you know, his wife is like really on board, his sister, and he's like really like an advocate, and or like we have a white guy from Florida, like that's not necessarily the first man who you think about as a feminist, you know, he's really on board, and so it's also interesting because men like to buy our products as gifts. So we have like a lot of men who like click through. Like actually our first customer was a man. And you know, we hear a lot of feedback from men who are trying to buy it for like their wives, you know, and things like that. And so I going in there for the women who have good men who are concerned about vaginal health and supporting their vaginas, like shout out to y'all, because you have won a jackpot, and shout out to those men. Keep going. And also like for those men to like bring some of their friends along, you know, like there's a lot of men who recognize that women have value, and how do we just like encourage that as a culture?
That's right. And that is when we were talking about like the burden of education. Like if some of the men who have come to realize all these issues we deal with, if they could talk to their bros about periods and, you know, yeast infections, like take some of that burden off of us of the education and do it themselves too. Right.
Yeah. And because there's so much pressure on women to be perfect. Like,
Oh God, yes. Especially with the new year, new you, fitness, like looking super fit, and then the push-up bras and the tight yoga pants and the thongs, like, and also be happy about all of it and don't ever get sick or smell weird, you know, like.
yeah, I was watching this show with a comedian, and he was Indian, and he made this comment, and he was like, in Hollywood, white men are the only group of men who get to just be average looking. Like everyone else like has to like, you know, like they have to be super attractive, they have to have multiple talents, they have to like you know, like you have the push-up bra, wear the tight pants, be wearing Spanx, like not eat, like have six packs, whether you're men or women. And I was just like, he's right, because there's a lot of like in Hollywood, a lot of men who are just like, you know, like, bro, I could have found you on a corner. Like you look like someone who is in my community. And I think about how much women struggle, even my own struggle with being perfect, like making a mistake. Like, you know how hard it is sometimes for me to be like, I made a mistake. Sometimes it keeps me from even doing anything, but you're not going to grow or do anything unless you make mistakes. And so I just think about those things.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is so much fun. We are definitely soul sisters. We're going to keep talking. I have two last questions for you that our listeners love. The first one is if someone, we have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that listen to the show. If someone wanted to start a femtech company, what's an area in women's health and wellness that still needs innovating?
Ooh, I think the bra is where most people initially go, but again, SKU count issues. And I think there's some like really great companies working on that. So Third Love already.
Mhm.
I think um, mortality rates for like recent moms, like when you look at like the number of women who are like passing like from like poor healthcare, things like that, who just had babies, like the number, like mom mortality rates have actually went up like
Oh,
in our country. It actually like went up. So like,
how old are you? I'm 29. Are we kind of the same age? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So you and I are actually twice as likely to die from pregnancy and birth than our mothers.
What? That's terrible. I need it to stop. Like, I need you, whoever is going into this industry, go find a reason to like fix that. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. It
No.
makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, you're a woman of color and your chances are like way worse than mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know who needs to fix that, but I really want someone to go look into that and like go fix it, you know?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I love that. I mean, because that's not even like, I mean, yeast infections are important. Like, I want to invest in you, right? Like, I believe in this, but at the same time, like, if someone's going to tell me, like, oh, women are literally dying from like
Yeah.
sepsis because no one believes them when they have birth and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's really freaking important, y'all. Like,
What is that? How did it go up? You're telling me science is getting better and yet more women are dying. Like, I don't even, like,
we
there's
got
not.
freaking SpaceX rockets are landing on boats. Like, yeah, and women are dying more. Oh God.
It's so
Crazy. It's crazy. Our last question is what do you think the femtech industry as a whole needs the most right now in order to be successful?
Yeah, I think we touched on this, right? Like allies. Right. But then, I also struggle with that because I struggle with saying the power is in some random person who doesn't necessarily experience our symptoms, who them having a change of heart and then deciding to invest. And I think about that specifically within like the Black community or like even Jewish community, like these communities of people. Or I think Asians do this very well too, where they hold their money together. Like they literally stick together and they invest in their own things. And they're like, this may be small right now, but like we're just going to continue to reinvest and we grow. And like I read the study, like the dollar stays in the Asian community in America for like so much longer than like other different races. And so when I think about femtech, maybe it's not really relying on these random people to like become educated and save us. Maybe it's like women spend our dollar in places that are, operated by women, and women like literally trying and like just within this community and like advancing it ourselves. And I think like that sort of like kick-ass attitude, like really championed by women like Serena and like Megan Rapinoe and things like that, like I think you see a lot more change.
I love that, because if we're going to convince the other 99% of women that are accredited investors, which means they're rich enough they can make startup investments, if we're going to convince them, I think it's easier to convince them to invest in menopause startups or pregnancy mortality startups than like, hey, you should spend your money in a really high risk way over here on blockchain. Like that's probably not going to be as easy of a sell than if we say, hey, yeast infections suck. And they say, yeah. And we're like, invest in these yoga pants, that's going to be way easier of a sell. We just have to find them. I just have to find those women. I need to go to like, I'm from Houston, and like River Oaks is like the like really, really rich neighborhood. I want to just like walk around. Maybe that's where I'll draw the vulvas. And underneath I'll say, invest today, calming.
Yeah. And I think it takes a lot of courage for those women. Cause like in my, within this business school community, they typically go into like a lot of tech and they're almost like hanging on. And it's like, I feel like a lot of times women are always playing catch up, and it's like, kind of just, how about you just create your own lane and be less focused on doing catch up. And I think that involves courage on their part. You know what I'm saying? I can't speak for that battle because I'm kind of just over here in my own lane anyway. But I don't know where you find them because it requires courage.
Yeah. And I love this idea because we're about to launch a Femtech Angels to get accredited investors to like look at our deal flow. And I'm going to be the director of it. Right. And I was asking some people, what do you think about starting an angel network? Is it like the biggest pain in the butt ever? Or is it like really rewarding? And they said, it's all about the behavior of your members. But luckily if you set the vision, if you set the tone, if you set the attitude that this is like a no judgment, vaginas are a normal thing we talk about on a daily basis. And like, if anyone is misbehaved, like you're out, that could be that safe space to get these women involved in investing maybe. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud now.
No, because then it becomes group therapy, right? It's like, you're like, because then we find with OYA, like it's interesting where we were having these focus groups, and women were like, this is the first time that I'm allowed to talk about this, or the first time where I feel comfortable. And women will pay where they feel comfortable.
Yeah. And you said that you were like talking about your pants at a bar or something, and a woman like ran up to you and were like, excuse me, I need these for my vagina immediately. That happened.
It was COVID. And I was like, why are you standing so close to me? I literally don't even know who you are. Like, I was kind of like alarmed. But then like she started asking questions on her Instagram, and I got that she was like an interested customer. And I was like, oh, and then I got it because I was like, and it's interesting because we got our first batch of leggings, and they were sold out. Like, I can't do anything. I can't I can't poop leggings. You know what I mean? Like, they were gone. Like, that's what they happened. And then we got this like very interesting, like kind of nasty comment from this woman. She's like, you have this website up there, but you know what? You can't even buy inventory, X, Y, and Z. But I understood. She wanted a pair because she was having problems, and like, and my heart goes out to these women because there's so many women with problems who they might not even necessarily have the words to describe their problem until someone literally puts it on a billboard like vaginas, Leggings, these are issues I need you to think about. And then they're like, I need
Chronic
it.
moisture, bad. Right?
I want to be there for those women. And startup, we're just scrappy and we're doing the best we can to get them out there, you know?
Mitch, you are amazing. Thank you so much for all you do. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Same energy back towards you. Thank you for creating a platform for vaginas and like Femtech just overall. And I think just really like pushing that mission out there. Like, how do we create opportunities and spaces for women to thrive, you know?
Yeah, love it. Talk to you soon, Mitch.
Thank you.